Yeah. Hey guys, my name's Jason.
I'm Hannah, and we did our presentation on the book Proof of Heaven. So this is just a brief introduction of the book. The guy that wrote it, his name was Eben Alexander, and he's a doctor, actually a neurosurgeon to be specific. He was adopted at a very young age, and he didn't know his birth parents at all. He loves skydiving. He has no strong beliefs or religion in God, heaven, any sort of thing like that. He has a wife named Holly and two sons named Eben and Bond. He attended school at the University of North Carolina and Duke University, where he got his doctorate. He's a professor at Harvard University, and he lived in Lynchburg, Virginia. This is me also.
Yep.
So I did chapters 1 through 7. So basically on November 10th, 2008, Eben fell into a coma. He was diagnosed with bacterial meningitis from E. coli. During his time in the coma, the only comprehensible words he said were, "God help me." So the first place that he believes that he went to when he entered heaven was the realm of the earthworm's eye view, and he described it as dark, murky, pounding noises with no emotions or logic. And then the second place he entered was the gateway, where he said he was flying on a butterfly's wing with a girl. There were people, children, dogs, waterfalls, trees, and flowers. There was no talking. They communicated through, strictly through eye contact, and there was no remembering of who he was on earth while he was in these places. So, and then chapters 8 through 11, he entered the third place, which was the core. Hearing and seeing were one. He could hear the visual beauty of things. Solid and immediate thoughts entered him directly. If he ever had a question about something, it would just come to him. He uses Om to refer to God because he is omnipotent and omniscient. And while he was there, an orb, which was an angel, was his companion and acted as his interpreter whenever he was wondering something or needed to know something. And Om told him there is more than one universe, and the main thing he learned there was that love is the center of everything. And then chapters 12 through 14, 3 things his companion told him. 1, you are loved and cherished dearly forever. 2, you have nothing to fear. And 3 is there is nothing you can do wrong. She told him he would be shown many things, but he was going back. And when he said going back, he meant to Earth. The entire journey summed up into you are loved, or in one word was loved. He said that his most important task was to show unconditional love and acceptance that he experienced on his journey. And that's what he decided was his purpose once he returned to Earth.
Eben's near-death experience was a lot different than others that were recorded. As he experienced he didn't experience consciousness while he was in heaven. He didn't know his name, occupation. He didn't know any relatives, anything that pertains to reality on his earth. So his experience showed how minute these scientific ideals are in the eyes of God. He was shown how small evil is compared to the good on earth, and the consequence of free will is that at times evil is given the floor and the upper hand. As he descended, he saw 6 faces of people he knew, and they all spoke something. Sylvia, Holly, Peggy, Scott Wade, Susan, and a young boy. Eben's eyelids began to flicker, coma vigil, death, which meant death is near. So calls were made to deliver the news to his son, to people in the family, and then his eyes just randomly popped open, and he begins flailing around to the discomfort of his breathing tube that is down his throat that was no longer needed. As he awoke, he was reliving the craziest adventures, specifically the skydiving. He began to mellow out these weird thoughts and was moved to a step-down unit. His recovery was rapid, and the severity of his near-death experience. Dr. Alexander reads what he has written for the first time. He wrote down everything that he saw in heaven, everything that he experienced. He recollected how lucky he is to be alive, with such a deadly disease, his near-death experience was possibly the closest you could be to death. A theory that was called DMT dump was said to possibly cause his hallucinations, but the serotonin effects, the neocortex, which he no longer had because of the meningitis. So 2 months later, Eben was recovered all of his neurological knowledge, which was extremely rare. Usually in a case like this, you lose, for the most part, all the knowledge that you've learned. So 4 months later, he got a picture of his never-before-seen sister, and a poem was written on the back. He saw her in his experience of the gateway. She was on the wing of a butterfly, as we said back in the beginning of this presentation. So I chose to do deconstruction for this book. Eben, speaking of what he's experienced in heaven, is a binary opposition, because he's speaking of his experience that can only happen when death occurs, yet he's still alive speaking of him today. It was also said that a girl riding on the wing of a butterfly, which was, we now found out, his sister, this is also a binary opposition, because on Earth, butterflies are one of the smallest things to fly around, yet on heaven they are massive enough to ride.
So I did the psychoanalysis of Proof of Heaven and the division of reality versus fantasy, the desire and the encounter with a wholly other real. It was so believable because he was a neurosurgeon, which supposedly automatically means he's a genius. Basically. And 5% of the population claims to have had a near-death experience. So we have to kind of take that into consideration when how many people we believe had these near-death experiences. His intentions, was it for fame or was it real facts? The doctor said she has no recollection of even saying "God help me" during his comatose state. So that kind of takes away from the validity of his statement that happened. And then it create this story to make sense of what happened while he was unconscious.